Welcome to the Vocal Freedom Podcast. I'm your host, Lee Martin Thomas. Join me and my guest speakers as they discuss the journey they've had with their own voice, as well as light bulb moments, stories, and personal wisdoms. Vocal Freedom is a bi-weekly podcast raising awareness about vocal health and well-being from members of the voice community. Okay, so today I am joined by the lovely Gen Irving, who is an 18-year-old musician and songwriter from Colchester. We've been working together for a while now, and I'm really interested in bringing you on the podcast this week to understand what it's like now to be a sort of young person who's a songwriter, and how you're influenced and what you want to write about and what you want to tell the world. So welcome to the show, Jen.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Yeah, that was a very nice intro. So my music, I kind of describe it as like soft indie rock that's blues inspired and pop inspired. But I kind of hate genres a lot because it's very like boxing. So that like when it comes into like being a songwriter and then being a producer and a performer, it's like, how do I get this across? So like vocal styling has helped me a lot, be like, this is the genre that I do, this is my music, and has helped me get like a consistent tone throughout my music, I find.
Oh, that's really wonderful. So how would you describe your journey so far using your voice when you were little up to now? How would you describe that?
It was very long. I never really liked my voice. I always found it a bit bland and boring. And also, I think as someone who was on the music scene from being like 13, 14 years old, constantly around me were these really pretty, delicate, soft, beautiful female vocals. I was like, I don't sound like that. I have like quite a raspy, raw vocal that can't really be described as pretty. So I hated that for a long time, but then I was like, well, I look at my inspirations and the fact that I grew up listening to people like Bruce Springsteen, Bob Dylan, like, of course my vocal was never going to be this like perfectly polished thing, but I've grown to like it more. Like, I'm still not 100% content with it, but like, I'm still young, and I think it's just one of those things that I'm hoping I'll grow out of.
Yeah, I do think it's very normal when you're in your teen years as well to compare yourself to others as you find your own way. So what's wonderful, though, is that you've sort of let go of, you know, what you're not, and now you're discovering what you are, and you're giving yourself permission to play and find what works best for you and your and what you want to tell the world, your message to the world. So it wouldn't make sense if that was wrapped up in this sort of pretty little sort of, you know, musical theatre voice. You know, it wouldn't work, would it? So, you know, Jen plays guitar.
I'm a very I'm a very angsty, angry person in my music. So that just kind of, I was like, it needs to sound like I'm constantly just sad when I'm singing. I hope it does. That's what the voice is there for, the purpose of the song.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so definitely singing with expression and intention, and that comes across. And if the song's got more content about the world not being such a nice place, then yeah, it wouldn't make sense to feel pretty about it. That's amazing. So yeah, going back to when you started using your voice when you were younger, did you get the opportunity to sing at school and in choirs and stuff, or did that just not appeal?
I was in the choir up until I was in about year 4, because like, this is going to sound really bad, but like, this kid who was like not nice to me was just like, they only put you in the front row and let you sing because you're fat and smile. I was like, oh damn, I am fat and smile. So that kind of, so I like quit choir, and then like, I grew up with like, my parents are both like tone deaf by genetics and like just logic. I shouldn't be able to sing at all. So I kind of had that in my mind, because I'd be listening to my mum and I'm like, oh no, that's me. Like, yeah. not good.
You realise your mum will probably hear this at some stage.
Oh, she knows.
She
I say
knows,
much
okay.
worse about her singing to her
Oh,
face.
bless. You see, I'm a little bit of the camp that singing is another way of using the voice, and it's something people can learn to do, isn't it? It's something that we've all
Yeah.
got, so I would encourage your mum more and say, right, come on, let's sing together. And but yeah, I mean, there's muscles that if you don't flex them very often, they'll be a bit weaker, and that's the same for pitching and tone and everything. Brilliant. So yeah, so a bit of choir singing, then you got put off by some mean kid, which was obviously not a good experience for you. That sounds quite traumatic. So what happened at that point? Did you leave
Yeah.
it alone, or when did the songwriting start?
Well, that's the thing, is like, because music has just always been the thing I was going to do. Like, I can't remember like, I remember moments in my life where I doubted it and wanted to quit and give up, and I hated it, but like, I love it, and it's the only thing I've ever wanted and felt like I had to do. So it was, from a young age, it was like finding any vehicle I could to make music. So like, I got my first guitar at 6 years old after like putting my windows and my face up against music shop, like
Oh,
like trying to just see in and look at the guitars. And I finally got my first one at 6, and then I just wrote and sang and played until people started liking it.
yeah. Okay. And what was do you remember the first song you learned to play on the guitar at 6?
I couldn't play anything besides the riff to Paint It Black by the Rolling Stones and the guitar solo in Teenagers by My Chemical Romance until I was 11. I spent 5 years getting those two guitar things down. And then I learnt to play Holes by Passenger,
Uh-huh.
performed it at my year 6 concert, and that just kind of changed everything. I was like, oh, I can play a song in full and sing it in front of people. Cool, that's what I'm going to do, of course.
And that's what you're still doing now. So I mean, one of the things that I
Yeah.
think is brilliant is to see you on your Facebook musician page every week. Now at home, obviously, we're all in this isolation with this worldwide pandemic going on, and it's really, really great to see creative young people still crafting themselves and working on it and entertaining as well. It's brilliant. Have you had much response from that from your fan base? Are people tuning in and giving you requests and things?
Yeah, people have been really great about it. Yeah, it was just kind of like a boredom thing, and I was like, cool, I've lost. Like, it was kind of like a really selfish thing in the beginning, because within like 24 hours, I lost like 500 quid worth of gigs over
Yeah.
the summer. I was like, oh no, I was planning on moving out at some point in my life, not living with my parents anymore. So it's kind of like, okay, I'll do this. And I was like, even if it doesn't make that much money, it just gives me like motivation to
Mm.
practice and like get in front of whatever kind of audience it'll formulate, even if it's only 8 people. But yeah, it's just something to do, and I hope people enjoy it.
And it's, you know what, it's really good practice for you. Although you're performing to, a device essentially,
Yeah.
have you watched your performances back and sort of thought about things that you can do, or do you hate that?
I hate it, but like find myself unable to not do it.
Mm.
I'm in the state of like, oh, I know this will drive me insane. Let me watch it 3 times in a row and obsess over one kind of like weird breath in I took, or one bum note I played on the guitar within an hour-long live stream. So
But if
that's
that's all
it's
there
not a good
is,
thing.
yeah, if that's all there is after an hour live stream, you're doing very, very well, young lady. It's brilliant. So, yeah. So after picking up the guitar at 6 and spending all that time on those 2 songs, and then you got to 11, and you did some, a performance at school, and it sort of changed your outlook. You were like, oh yeah, this is a job I can do in the future. What was the journey between then and now?
Oh god, it was not a fun journey, because when I learnt one song, I was like, cool, I've learnt a song. That doesn't mean anything when you're trying to be like a proper performer, and like, I only had one song for 3 years that I could play confidently, so I'd be playing that one song at every school talent show, until I was just like, you know what, I've written like 100 songs, they're just in a notebook, they've got basic chords, but I'm just going to play it because I'm sick of playing this one cover.
What was
And
it?
then people liked
What was the
it.
one
Was
cover?
Holes by Patton.
Oh, that one. Yes, yes, yes. You did mention that. Sorry.
Yeah. and it's a great song, but I cannot listen to it anymore. It became like a recurring joke for many years amongst my friends to be like,
Oh.
"Oh, Jen Holds by Passenger." Um, so after the trauma of that, I just decided to start writing my own stuff.
That's amazing. I mean, I'm really, yeah, I'm a big admirer of yours for that actually, because I was writing songs when I was your age, and eventually life took over. I think once I did leave home at 18, and to start my sort of adult journey and training at that point, I left behind my piano. So I used to write songs with a piano rather than a guitar, and I couldn't move my I had an upright acoustic piano, not a digital one. And even though it's a big machine, I was
Yeah.
moving from my family home in Wiltshire to my my rented flat in North London, and there was no way I could bring a piano with me. So I just didn't like touch music in quite the same way because I was then busy with my studies. Do you know what I mean? And I've never really gone back to it. I've dipped my toe into songwriting a few times, just assisting clients where they might be coming in and saying, "Oh, I'm working on this. Can you help?" And I've maybe guided with a few chord progressions and things like that. But it's not, it's actually an art form that I think you get better and better at the more you do it as well, don't you? It's kind of like if you flex that muscle, you get really strong at it. And I'd love to go back to it at some point actually in my life, but who knows when I'll get the time. Yeah. So what interests me, I think, is when I think back to the songs I was writing when I was, I do remember writing my first one at 10. And then after that, it got a bit silly for a while. I remember when I was about 12, we had this science lesson once, and we were supposed to remember all of these elements from the periodic table. So I started to write a rap against a drum beat with my drum machine with some keys and some synth and, it was a rap with some singing to help
Yeah.
everybody in my class remember the elements of the periodic table. So I was trying to be creative with music in those ways and still educational in a way. It was weird. Can't remember anything of it now though. I wish I don't think I've ever
Yeah.
recorded it. But my content inspiration was massively varied between the ages of say 10 and 18. And of course, when you're a teenager, you want to write about the things that happen. So I had heartbreak songs and I had, pouring out of emotion and anger and all of that sort of stuff. Is that where you're coming from, or have you got a different kind of message?
I think I'm trying to not be so in every song talking about like being sad and drunk in every single song. I'm trying to like veer away from that and try to like say stuff about the world because like I am really passionate about stuff in the world. I'm just bad at putting it in songs. I'm a lot better at being like, oh my god, everything's about me. Everything about me sucks. The world hates me. I think to be a songwriter, in like the way I am, it's very selfish songwriting. So I'm trying to get away from that and be more of a Bob Dylan, Paul Simon type, but I think
Mm.
I'm just stuck to be whiny and angsty for the rest of my life,
Oh,
maybe.
oh, don't write yourself off, left, lovely. It's like you've got a lot of time to grow and explore, haven't you? But I do find I think it's refreshing, and one of
Yeah.
the reasons I wanted to invite you on this show is because I don't meet many young. I think we met when you were 17, but meet many young people whose influences are these amazing songwriters from the past: Joni Mitchell, Paul Simon, Bob Dylan, Bruce Springsteen. You've got this fabulous back catalogue where some
Yeah.
18-year-olds, I'll say something about Bob Dylan and they'll say, who? So how did this happen? Is
Yeah.
this from your parents' music growing up?
Yeah, definitely. My mum is very cocky about the fact that I would not make the music I make or be a musician without the music she like played in the car growing up. Like I just most of my childhood memories are listening to like Simon and Garfunkel concert in Central Park, all my siblings, parents in the car on a journey. So it's like that soft rock kind of 70s anger but passion was just kind
Mm.
of put in me. But I was also listening to a lot of my brother's music, which was like N-Dub and like Skepta, and so it was just like a very varied selection of music I was exposed to from a very young age. My dad's really into jazz, so I just, yeah, I once got told I have like this encyclopedic knowledge of 70s soft rock by a teacher at my old college. I think that's probably the easiest way to put it.
Amazing. So no, I think really it's just really refreshing to not be speaking to an 18-year-old girl who either wants to be, no offense to the other people I work with, because obviously I love working with them too, but it is a nice, breath of fresh air to meet a younger musician who's influenced by some of the people I've heard of, is how I would put it. So I'm going to ask you another question now. I know, and this is, I suppose it's a bit more of a reflective question that would make sense for me to ask an older person, but I think it's still relevant to ask you this. Is there anything that you know now that you wish you'd learned sooner?
Oh, honey and lemon tea. I
Ah.
like drink that stuff like it's water, and it's so good for me. Like, because I drink a lot of coffee, so stuff that like properly dries out my throat and
Mhm.
makes it hard to sing for like longer than 30 minutes. So like I've like gone to festivals in the summer with just like a bottle, like water bottle filled with like iced tea that's honey and lemon, and I'm like, this is what I've got to do to be able to sustain my life. Also, just breathing and enunciation has never been my strong point. I'm from Essex. It's just not a good thing that works.
And you
So I have
have
to try very hard for that even now. And I imagine I'll have to work at it for a while longer.
it's very tempting. Yeah, I mean, this is something we know that we're working on together, isn't it? Sometimes I'll let you know what it sounds like, and then say, "Is the word schmanky long
Yeah.
glonk or something?" And he'll be like, "No, no, no." So whatever it was, but no, it's brilliant. Yeah, obviously we do want our listeners to understand the words. But that said, that these people you're influenced by, sometimes their diction isn't the best in the world, and they're able to get the message across. And a lot of American singers will have different vowels and things. But you do have an American parent, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. A very, very American parent. Not like bad American like some of them are, but the accent
Not a
and the
Trump
music
worshipper.
taste. It's very American.
Yeah. Here's a question for you then. So I'm asking about people about their light bulb moments and, more so, I suppose, working on their own voices, but also I think what I'd like to ask you about this more so is from the performance angle. If there's a young person listening now who is starting to write their own music and they want to get out on the scene and go out and do some busking or get some gigs, in those experiences, what have you learned that might be helpful for them to know?
Oh, this is difficult. Um, I mean, I've just trust yourself. Just you know what you're writing and what the intent of your music is. Just trust yourself to get it out there. Like, even if you think going for a certain note on vocal could be shaky, if it's the kind of thing where you're like, this song needs this moment where I at least try, like, just try and trust yourself. That's what I try and do. It's a bit hypocritical because there's often times where I'll be like, nope, you're gonna step away from the microphone. But yeah, there's no, unless you're like Jimi Hendrix covering Bob Dylan, no one is gonna play the songs you write with your intent as well as you are. And that was kind of, I never liked myself as a singer or a performer, a guitarist, a songwriter, but it's what I have to do for myself. So it's got to be out there, like just trusting it.
Yeah, that's really good advice, Jen, actually, because you like I said to the class last week, you're an expert at being you, and that's very eloquently put about the songwriting. If you're writing a song and you know your message and you want to get it out there, then you're right. No one's going to sing it better than you can, aren't they, at that point, because they don't know what your intention is. So that's really good advice. Thank you. Here's a question then. I think you may have already answered this one. I'm going to ask it again. What have you found most valuable in caring for your own voice? Is that the tea?
The tea,
Yeah.
the tea, definitely. Like it sucks because I go to a lot of live concerts of bands I really like, but I try not to have lost my voice by the time the like main act has come on, because that used to happen a lot. Like I used to be a very big screamer at concerts, and now I try to tone it down, but
Yeah.
excitement, who knows?
What does your voice mean to you?
That well, on a musician level, it means a lot to me because it's like a vehicle for me to be able to put my music out there, have people listen to what I not like need to say, because sometimes I'm like, oh, am I really playing this song in this set? This is going to be a bit of a drag. But like just yeah, it's difficult. As as a musician with my voice, I'm trying to get more confident in it, but it always kind of came like last place in terms of like priorities, because I saw myself as a songwriter, like guitarist, producer, performer, all before I ever considered myself a singer. But then like now I'm looking at it and I'm like, I can't be all these things as well as I want to without the fact that I am a singer. I've got to just own it. Like I think I think as a like woman who's not come from a musical theatre background as well, kind of wanting to own the fact that I'm a singer, because there can be a lot of shame with that if you're trying and like me trying to go into like rock or anything that's kind of a male dominated um genre or industry, because it all is. But it's just harder. There's a lot more pressure to have like a certain perfect voice, and I just never had that. But it's trying to be content with the fact that I think I'm skilled enough in the other stuff to get away with the voice I have.
Well, I think the voice you have is in development, and it's as it will be for most 18-year-olds. It's you may be still on a. Do you know what? I'm in my 40s. I'm still on a journey. There's
Yeah,
lots of people that are older than me that are still on a journey. We're never really ever going to get to the point. Maybe if we ever going to get to the point where every single time we make a sound, it's the exact sound we want and everything's perfect all the time. That's probably the day we're going to die, right? Because it's like
yeah,
there's always room. And we're not machines, we're not supposed to sound like machines or just sing perfectly. It's almost like for me, the beauty is sometimes in the imperfection, the beauty is in the expression. And if it's heightened emotion, that's often can go a bit off pitch sometimes or whatever because it's heightened. And we're very forgiving of other artists, aren't we? I mean, if you think about loving Bruce Springsteen, he doesn't always sing with the most pitch control in the world, does he? But you forgive him because he does it with
not at
such
all.
he does it with such authenticity and you believe him and he wants to give and that's what we take as the listener. So
Yeah, he's definitely a big inspiration for me vocally because I grew up on him, and I don't think my voice would be what it is without listening to that like raw emotion that
mm.
he's like just screaming like it's just incoherent screaming in a New Jersey accent, and I love it. And so there'll be times where I'm like looking back at videos of myself playing and being like, where in the moment I was like, oh, I just had a voice crack. That's horrible. I've ruined the set. I'm looking back and I'm like, whoa, that's actually kind of like a all right moment to have it, because it's like a raw moment. You want it to sound like something's not going right.
Yes, absolutely true. Yeah. I mean, I do always say to people I work with, let's embrace the cracks and the wobbles and the wibbly bits or whatever it is that you're scared of. If we embrace and go through them, then we can do things to come out the other side. It's when people are so fearful of this kind of I'm going to do this in inverted commas. Obviously, people on the podcast can't see this, but that whole "I've gone wrong" sensation. Um, if you kind of give yourself permission to be free and have a bit of vocal freedom. Name of the podcast, dropping it in there. It's a way of having a sort of true expression. Do you think?
Yeah. Um, it's important. I definitely I'm never not going to have voice cracks. I have a very like 13-year-old boy voice. I'm okay with it at this point. Like I used to freeze up in the moment. Like I'd say when I started properly going to like open mics and stuff, so about like 14 to 16, anytime I'd like have a mess up on stage, like it'd give me the most anxiety for like weeks after going into the next gig and the next gig. And it's just kind of like there are things that make me much more anxious now. Like, it's
Yes,
like, oh, the state of the world, voice cracks don't matter. They
yeah.
just don't.
Yeah, that's it. When we're going through coronavirus and stuff and all this is happening, it's puts it in perspective a little bit, doesn't it?
Definitely.
Brilliant. So I've had a bit actually through this chat so far. We've had a bit about the voices and well, the musicians that have inspired you. But yeah, what more so about what voices inspire you? Singing voices inspire you, and then within that, sort of like a twofold question: who could you never tire of listening to?
Okay, so first off the bat, both of them, Joni Mitchell, Paul
Okay.
Simon, Springsteen, like just a load of the people that just they do have some of the greatest voices ever. And even if they're not like technically perfect voices, they're just like, for me, sonically so nice and pleasing. Voices that like helped me kind of grow in what I do. When I was like, okay, this is what my voice is, this is the kind of music I make. I was listening to a lot of like Nina Simone, Janis Joplin, Amy Winehouse, Tracy Chapman, Chrissy Hind, like just a load of these women who had great vocals, and like just should be appreciated as much as they are, more than they are. Just I have a weird vocal. They all were considered to have weird vocals, and they worked them perfectly.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm not going to call your vocal weird, but I would say embrace what's different about you. You know, embrace the differences, and um, you know, who's to say what's aesthetically perfect or better or deserving. I think we can get a bit too, I guess, you know, when the light shines on someone that does something that's vocally very acrobatic. So we look at maybe someone like Mariah Carey or Celine Dion or Whitney Houston. When those voices were out, when I was young in my formative years, I was like, wow, because you just saw what the human voice was capable of doing. But it didn't necessarily mean I really loved that style of music. So, and obviously that style of singing suits those styles of music. But the sort of music you're into, that's very different, with the sort of the style of singing is very different, and you're the singer songwriter, you know,
Yeah.
acoustic guitar or raw band or rock band. They don't seem to have vocalists that are along that line of vocal acrobatics. It's more about that
Yeah.
honest message, isn't it? Getting that honest message across of what it is you're trying to say, whether that's something about life being a bit messy or life being brilliant or whatever it is. It's done, I don't know, would you say perhaps with more poetry than acrobatics?
Yeah, I think because more than anything, I'm a songwriter, a lyricist, a guitarist. I tend to go to the music that is very like lyrically strong. Like I do tend to go for these like very profound, prolific songwriters. But then you learn so much from their vocals because they're people like me who didn't focus on their vocals, but it still worked well. Like the fact that a vocalist was like the fourth thing Joni Mitchell was is like the most insane thing to me because it still sounded so perfect. So yeah, I just went for the people that it's not just about their vocals, but their vocals work so well because
Mm.
of that reason.
Yeah, that makes sense. You know, all round musicians as well as singers. In fact, most of the singers that I'm drawn most to, um, who I could just listen to tirelessly, you know, literally could just have album after album. They don't tend to have the most pretty voices, but they have some ingredient that means I won't tire of the honesty and the sort of emotion in the sound, which doesn't have to be over a 5 octave range. You know, it can just be over a very smaller range, but as long as it's sort of being sang as if it's truthful, you know, as if it's being meant and felt, is more important than the range, I think.
Yeah.
We agree on that, don't we? That's brilliant. So I think it'd be really lovely for our Vocal Freedom podcast listeners to get an idea of what your music is about, Jen. So why don't you introduce one of your songs that we're going to play and let everybody know what it's about?
Okay, this is called Heaven to Me. I wrote it like February 2019. I had just dropped out of a college, had a big moment that wasn't a fun one, and I was listening to a lot of Hosier, um, Ella Fitzgerald, Etta James. I was like, I just want to write like a sexy, bluesy, jazzy song. I'm just like really done with being sad. So I'm gonna just write a song that's fun for me. And like the darkness of it was like, it helped a lot because right before that, I'd gone through a phase of like, I'm gonna write happy music. And that caused me a bit of an identity crisis. So this song brought me back out of that and yeah, kickstarted me writing again after like a 6 month long break.
That's amazing. So Heaven to Me is the title of the track. And what would you say that the song is about?
Just like something not being great and you just kind of love it anyway. Like it's kind of put through the lens of like a toxic relationship, just because that's kind of the easiest thing for people to process in terms of like just the meaning of the song being like, I am obsessed and addicted to something so dark, but I will take that because I want it anyway. Like
the way you move through the darkness, yearning to be free, oh so fierce and so harmless, wreaking havoc over me. Oh, but I love it when you dance, as if the world could hardly see things I do to take a chance, leave this world obsolete. The way you move through the darkness, so numb but I can better see. This love is a monster, so full and dangerously. I'll take all of this darkness, 'cause you're nothing but heaven to me. I'll go down to the river bend, I hope this feeling subsides. I can barely stand the thought of living, there's no life in your eyes. Tell me what am I here for, 'cause baby it ain't for me. Swallowed up by some ancient war, all I know is atrophy. The way you move through the darkness, so numb but I can better see. This love is a monster, so full and dangerously. I'll take all of this darkness, 'cause you're nothing but heaven to me. The way you move through the darkness, so numb but I can better see. This love is a monster, so full and dangerously. I'll take all of this darkness, 'cause you're nothing but heaven to me.
So that was Heaven to Me by Gen Irving. Where can people get hold of that?
Spotify, Apple Music, Deezer, just type in Gen Irving and it should come up right there.
Amazing. So we're going to play a second song, and this one's a bit different from Heaven to Me. And this is called
Gift from God. I know it seems very much like the continuation of the biblical thing. That was kind of a purpose thing, because I use imagery a lot in my music, and kind of the EP that both of these tracks in a few months are going to appear on is kind of like, it's kind of a biblical time we're living in. Like, this is Old Testament stuff going on, so it kind of worked out that that came together. But Gift from God, it's kind of a happier, upbeat song through the lens of like being really depressed. So where the other one was kind of this like, I will be optimistic about a darkness, and this really like, there's a B7 in that song, so it's like a fun, sexy, bluesy song, whereas Gift from God is very like straightforward soft rock. Like, it's just unapologetically cheesy and predictable, and I love it for it. It's so much fun to play live.
We don't talk like friends. Trust me, I know, 'cause I have so many of them. And we'll go round and around and around and
Brilliant. Okay. So, so where can people find you on social media?
On everything, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, SoundCloud, I'm all at Gen Irving 10, GENIRVING, numeric, then 10. I'm not good at speaking, it's 10. So yeah, just at Gen Irving 10 on everything. Yeah.
No, that's really
I get
helpful.
up to some fun stuff online.
My last question is, what does vocal freedom mean to Gen Irving?
Like, being scared of being a vocalist is something that held me back in being a vocalist for very long. I was like, I don't want to get too into this. I don't, like, for so long my mum was like, Jen, please get lessons, it's pitchy. And I was like, no, because I'm not a vocalist, I don't care. And it's like, it's okay to care, it's cool to care about things. I care about my voice and my vocal health because I want to be making music for as long as I can, and this is the way I'm doing it, so it's got to mean something.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's really lovely. Thank you very much for joining me, Jen, and I hope you've enjoyed the interview, and people will come and look for you.
Yes, thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. Okay.
It's been fun.
Thank you for joining me on the Vocal Freedom Podcast. I hope you've enjoyed the episode, and we'll move into your day with a bit more vocal freedom, feeling that you can express using your voice and let the world hear what you have to say. Visit colchestervoiceacademy.com/podcast. Sign up to be kept informed as new episodes are published, and consider joining our online community. Membership to this will allow you to post questions to our guests, link you to show notes, social media links, and entitle you to exclusive offers from our guests. See you next time.